And we're live. I think I got that right. Welcome everyone to another edition of the Political Recap on Moisky Live. I am the host, Omegon. Trups will be joining soon. There's a reason he's not here, and that's because the reason I'm starting early. The reason why, for those who want to know, is because PMQs is on Wednesday, and I forgot to do a response video to it. So I'm doing it now, going against a comment I made, a pinned one, or a community tab post here where I said there'll be no more streams of PMQs. There won't be next week or the week after until this whole corona issue is resolved. And I'm going to apologise now for something. Ever since Monday, BT has claimed they are providing me with the internet package I paid for. Well, they're not. And I can prove that with a very quick speed test. Now, before we get into PMQs, hello Cyrene, Zach, FabFitGeeky, Diana, Luna, Winston, Pool of Xander, literally a friggin' wizard, well done Harry, the Shadow Loaf, Nose, and Reese Donald. Hope you're all well. My current download rate, megabits per second, is 3.32. Hello, Karma. My upload rate fluctuates between 0 and 0.2. Seriously, I'm not even getting the basics of what I should. My download rate should be at least 10, and my upload should be 4.2. Tomorrow, they're going to get a very aggressive message from me because I can't stream properly. If I can't, I will do something else in the sense where I will talk to Trups. He and I will record it, a political recap of just us talking, and we will then upload it and premiere it, but we will both be in the chat for it, as I think that's the only other option if I can't get my internet sorted. It isn't my fault, though, I should say. It is entirely the fault of the, I don't know, what are we calling it, say, the Samuel Adams virus, for putting additional strain on the internet providers who claimed that they had this under control and everything was okay. Barely tolerable, exactly. Anyway, yes, so, I'm going to do PMQs first. Yes. Now, this is different to regular PMQs, and the reason why I wanted to do this one today, this one in particular, is because this is the last one by Jeremy Corbyn. Pinky gone. I appreciate that. You know what? Billy, that stuff's, yeah. I'll get you a £50 credit for joining Virgin Media Fibre is amazing. The issue is, BT own all the lines around here. That's why I can't go to another company like Virgin. They don't have any access to any of the lines around here, and we're stuck. So yes, PMQs, Corbyn's last one, but this is different as well, because there are two sets of questions, meaning Jeremy Corbyn gets to ask 12. And Ian Blackford, 4. That's not a joke, and I've written all my answers down in my notebook here. I am ready for this. So, shall we get on with this?
Order. I have a short statement to make about the conduct of today's Prime Minister's question time. It is exceptional. I will run Prime Minister's questions until 1 o'clock. It will serve as an effective replacement for separate statements on the situation of coronavirus. I will allow the...
This then means that we don't have to get additional politicians in to make those statements and then summary replies, instead putting the pressure on the leaders of their respective parties, which is a bit more simple.
Leader of the opposition, 2 sets of questions of 6, so the total of 12, which I
Thank you for the maths. Just imagine if Diane Abbott was the speaker.
expect to be taken in 2 sets of 6. Similarly, I will allow the leader of the second largest party 4 questions in 2 sets of 2. I will also exceptionally call a further question from an opposition front bench spokesperson. In order to maximise...
Evil. I take many forms. Thank you very much for aiding me with my budget deficit. Yes. It all helps.
Nice participation. Can I ask for short questions and short answers?
I'm going to just state this now. At no point does anyone ask short questions at all. In fact, I would argue liberties are taken by Jeremy quite a bit. But it's his last one, so I kind of get it.
We now start Prime Minister's questions with Susanna Webb.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in the House, I will have further such meetings later today.
This must be like the most awkward PMQs they could ever have, because they can't have the 650 people that are usually in that room, unless they're all just swimming in a bath of sanitizer.
Susanna Webb.
Firstly, I would like to pay tribute to the Prime Minister and his ministers.
Ah, virtue, go away. Let's go to Jeremy. Ah, here we are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for making the best arrangements possible today to ensure that as many members as possible can ask questions, but also that the government is held to account, which is what the function of Parliament is. Many more people will be mourning the loss of loved ones as a result of coronavirus.
Samuel Adams virus.
This week, our hearts go out to all of them and to those suffering from the disease at the present time. Across our country, people are working day and night to keep us safe, fed and warm. Our wonderful NHS staff, police, firefighters, prison and probation workers, teachers, civil servants, local government staff and social care, all of them are showing the value of public service. They are the unsung heroes.
I would argue they're not, because everyone's very much aware of what they do. Some go so far as to imitate them, so they can get into supermarkets to get food before the actual people that require it, let's say more than them because they didn't earn it. Or the gobby teenagers who are flouting the lockdown rules to instead kick postmen's vans, because why not? Oh, and how about the teenage girls who have been seen on video walking up to NHS staff and just coughing in their faces? I'm not even joking, by the way. This is genuinely stuff I came across while preparing for this stream, and I will, afterwards, link all relevant sources as a pinned comment down below. I'm sure many, Russell, many. But let's not forget now we're in a position where you used to cough to hide a fart, but now you need to fart to hide a cough. And it has to be a proper ripper.
Keeping the transport system running, the post delivered, utilities running, and our supermarkets properly stocked.
I would argue not mine. Oh, geez. The co-op nearest me, I had to go there today, and I had to wait in a queue outside, but very kindly, they had drawn lines on the concrete in chalk to say how far apart, because people then were crowding, and it was like, well, actually, this is then counter to what you're trying to do inside if outside is worse. Interestingly, I did see a couple of articles of shopkeepers getting fined by the police for drawing lines to stop people from getting so close to each other. How dare they do it in chalk? Jeez, the police have got their priorities wrong.
I'd like to pay special mention to one group that are usually ignored, forgotten, and decried as unskilled workers: cleaners.
I'm one of those, but I have no work. And we'll get to that soon, I promise. Oh boy, I have an opinion on that. We don't normally get much in the way of attention because most of us don't care enough. But I'm glad you'd recognise it, Jeremy. I am genuinely glad you'd recognise that. But yeah, no.
All around the country and in this building are doing their best to keep our places hygienic and safe.
As long as they're still open.
Over the past few weeks, I've asked the Prime Minister many times what action is being taken to ensure testing is being prioritised, and I've received assurances that everything that could was being done. Yet, Mr. Speaker, a leaked email shows it was just 3 days ago that the Prime Minister wrote to UK research institutes to ask for help. saying there was no testing machines available to buy. Why wasn't this done weeks ago, if not months ago, when the government was first warned about...
Right, I'll turn it up. My apologies. Thank you, M, for the $5 donation. That's very generous of you. I've turned it up, Russell. If it is too low for you still, then I'm going to have to ask, I guess, that you lip read? Because I can't turn it up any higher. Or can I?
About the threat of a global pandemic.
How's that?
And what action is now being taken to get testing machines?
Right, so this is a valid question. Genuinely, a valid question. However, there's one minor flaw in it. The flaw is that it's predicated on the assumption that we had to act sooner. We didn't. We took precautions, but we didn't have to go as far as we have to now. Because of that, this appears to be the government not doing what they should have done sooner and therefore doing it later. Not the case. They pounced on it late because we weren't, unlike other countries, as badly affected. And then when we were affected, like today, it happens pretty badly. For example, the death toll in this country just jumped by 200-ish. Which is a huge leap, by the way.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps I could begin by pointing out that this is the Right Honourable Gentleman's last Prime Minister's questions, and it would be appropriate, I think, for me to pay tribute to him for his service to party and indeed to the country over the last 4 years in a very difficult job. We may not agree about everything, but no one can doubt his sincerity and his determination to build a better society. And I want to pay particular tribute and thanks to him and all his colleagues for their cooperation in the current emergency as far as possible across party lines. I agree with him very much in what he said about cleaners. They do an extraordinary job, and they deserve all the protection and support that we can give them in this difficult...
Self-employed, though. Before it pops, K. Geezy, thank you very much for the $10 sticker. I'm very, very grateful for that. It's very generous of you. See, there it is.
Time and on testing. He is quite right that testing is vital to our success in beating the coronavirus, and as the Health Secretary has explained many times, we are massively increasing our testing campaign, going up from 5,000 to 10,000 to 25,000 a day, and in our...
Hopefully that will increase further, of course, with those being given certain priorities, like this guy, for example. We'll get to that later. Yeah, hopefully that will certainly improve. And by the way, the reason I've had to pause is because copyright, you know the rules.
Answer directly to his question, this has been a priority of this government ever since the crisis was obviously upon us, for weeks and weeks.
Jeremy Corbyn.
I thank the Prime Minister for his very kind remarks. I believe in a decent, socially just society. And he was talking as though this was a sort of obituary. Just to let him know,
Jeremy's about to do a funny. I just had to pause again because you know the rules.
my voice will not be stilled. I'll be around, I'll be campaigning, I'll be arguing, and I'll be demanding justice for the people of this country and indeed the rest of the world. We can only protect the health...
They'll ignore you though, Jeremy. I do think there is some truth to this. He is one of those guys that because he goes after the rich people, and a lot of the rich people do hold quite a lot of power. They can paint him a certain way. It's just a shame some of his choices are very difficult to spin in a positive light. I mean, I guess you could say in his, I don't know, final speech that he was a very good tryhard.
Health of us all, Mr. Speaker, if we protect the health of our carers...
And before he continues with carers, Brandon Brown, Jeremy funny, surely you jest. He makes a joke later. I'm not even kidding. He actually does, because I've got it written down here. Jeremy does a funny on question 4 on part 2 of the PMQs questions. Yeah, no joke. See you, Keith.
Yet the charity Sue Ryder, who provide care to people with neurological conditions, have said that their workforce is depleting daily as they have no access to tests. When will all the social care staff have access to regular testing? They are very, very important and obviously very, very vulnerable in this crisis.
Again, another very important question. And Lulubell, you make a very good point, actually, because Jeremy, after this, does an interview with the BBC, and he says that what the Samuel Adams virus has taught us is that Labour's hard left policies were right. That's what he said. Yeah. I should say, of all the questions asked, only the first question does Boris not answer. He actually does answer. I say not answer because he doesn't really give a clear answer, but he does on all the others, which I find to be quite impressive.
He's entirely right. I don't want to repeat what I've just said, except to say that social care staff, in common with NHS staff and indeed other public sector workers, need to be tested as fast as possible. And the answer to his question is we will do it as fast as possible.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Obviously, if they have to self-isolate because they suspect they have the disease
Samuel
and can't
Adams.
get a test, then their work is lost for a week. And obviously those that need the care and support don't get it at that time. There are reports that care homes workers are being turned away from supermarkets in relation to priority shopping, not being allowed to buy more than certain items that they desperately need to feed their residents.
Yeah, this one's a bit tricky because I know they're given priority to NHS, police, fire departments. Social care workers, though, I'm not sure about. It's a bit tricky. I do think that if it comes down to getting supplies for the clients, some concession of some kind needs to be made, but obviously there should be, regardless of who you are, a limit. Because you need to live and lead by an example. We all do. In my local co-op, you can't buy more than 2 loaves of bread. Okay then? When someone then says, but I've got 4 kids to feed. Okay. Tell them to eat the crust. And if they don't like it, they go hungry. It's how I was raised when I got stuck with corned beef sandwiches for a week. I hated corned beef. But you ate it, or you went hungry. Children should be seen and not heard.
What is the Prime Minister's plan for making sure that care workers can get the vital food and supplies they need for the people that they're caring for?
I have a question. Are we talking actual vital supplies, or are we talking, a few bits here and there that are considered luxuries? Because there's a difference. When it comes to main, food, certainly in the UK, a lot of it is bought in and ordered from, retailers, and it's delivered, right? That's not the same as going to your local supermarket with some clientele that you can take there and buying them bags of Haribo. It's not the same thing. So we have to be a bit more specific and careful here. We are in a current phase of what could be compared to rationing. And that is reasonable. Some people may not understand it. Oh God, corned beef and brown sauce is fine if it's cooked. If it's cold, you can do one. I used to live, and this is a weird flex. I'm not trying to flex. When times were tough for me, I had to live on £5 a week for food. It's not the easiest, but you have to settle for the lowest common denominator. You have to settle for perhaps one flavour. It's just, you have to do that. And I'm very confused here whether they're referring to, because it's very vague, because my sister's worked in the care industry for 20 years. I know how it runs, how they do in the UK anyway. They get it ordered in. It's not the same, but then some clients want to go and spend their money to obtain certain things. This is where the corned beef hash, I never had that till I was 23. I missed out on so many decent meals. I'm carrying on.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as he can and the House can imagine, we've been in regular contact with all the retailers, all the supermarket chains. I had a conversation with all of them a couple of days ago, and they were absolutely determined to ensure that key workers do get time in supermarkets. If there is a particular problem, I will raise it with them again.
I will say the supermarkets are under incredible pressure right now. Thank you, Okie Native. Corned beef is delicious if it isn't cold. I noticed that we had a delivery of Asda today, but my sister tried to book one in for April 9th. She still can't do it. I have a sneaky feeling it's going to get a lot harder to do basic orders. It's tricky. Oh, I like people agreeing. Bubble and squeak, sorry. Yes, I like a bit of bubble and squeak.
Jeremy Corbyn.
I hope the Prime Minister will, because care workers are on the front line looking after the most vulnerable people within our society, and keeping our care homes safe and well should be and must be an absolute priority. The Prime Minister has been saying for quite a long time that NHS staff will get the equipment they need, yet the Healthcare Supply Association, just get that, has been forced to use Twitter to ask DIY shops to donate protective equipment to NHS staff.
Yeah, I saw those tweets. I will link those after the stream as well. I found that to be quite amusing, but it was one of those damning statements for being caught off guard and ill-prepared. Understandably ill-prepared, we didn't expect something as truly horrific as what the Samuel Adams is.
This is an appalling situation. When will NHS staff, social care staff and community nurses and all other staff relating to healthcare get the PPE equipment they absolutely, desperately need?
PPE is fundamental, although going to a hardware store to acquire it, tricky.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can tell him, and he's absolutely right to raise this issue. I know this has been a concern, and we had a long meeting on it this morning, but I'm assured that not only are the stocks there now, the Army is now distributing the supplies to all the NHS staff, all the hospitals that need it, and in the last 24 hours, they have distributed 7.5 million pieces of equipment.
Jeremy Corbyn.
It's important they get it, because yesterday 77% of NHS chiefs who responded to a survey said that the lack of staff testing and staff shortages were the two biggest areas of concern for them.
Reasonable concern to have, and I certainly hope that gets addressed soon.
Last week, the Prime Minister stood in this chamber at the dispatch box and said that he would, and I quote, protect private renters from eviction.
He did. So there are some systems in place that are going to be announced. The Prime Minister mentioned in his answer. And I'm going to say this now. There are always going to be versions of this eviction-related issue where people will say one thing and claim that it is that, when it could well be a different reason they got evicted. I want that to be put out there because I believe it is a distinct possibility.
He absolutely said that. Yet, some renters will be getting eviction notices as early as next week. The Prime Minister appears to have gone back on his word. So will he now finally absolutely ban evictions for 6 months in line with the renewal?
Before we continue, Pool of Zedda. Student pizza, slice of bread spread with tomato puree topped with cheese. I think you can buy that in Greggs for like £1.50 a slice. I'm not even joking. They're rubbish.
Renewal period of the emergency legislation which is going through its parliamentary process at the moment.
So yeah, this is all about the evictions, and what we want, someone, is to extend the eviction notice by 6 months. Problem is, many people have a bottom line, and that bottom line will be monetary, and so it's going to be very hard to convince people to keep people there. Yeah, exactly, Shadow Loaf knows exactly that. Evicting during the crisis is not equal to evicted because of crisis. But some will say it is, and that's how they're trying to frame it. It's a very tricky one. Arguably, I say this is the weakest of Corbyn's questions, but he still has a valid point here.
he raises a very important point about the need to protect renters, which is why I answered in the way I did last week. We've actually gone further now, as he knows, by lifting up the local housing allowance to the 30th percentile of median rents, which will be very important for many people on low incomes across the country. But we are also, as he knows, making sure that no-fault evictions are no longer legal, and that is part of the bill.
Well, unfortunately,
Hopefully, people who are being threatened with eviction because of this crisis don't lose their homes. But to anyone that does, and it's because of a different reason, please don't say it is because of this, because you're just an idiot. That's why you lost your home.
Unfortunately, this isn't what the reality is on the ground, as many of my colleagues will point out. We are getting constituents in touch with us who are being threatened with eviction now because they are in rent arrears, because they cannot work because of the shutdown over coronavirus.
Yeah, it's almost as if we weren't ready for this. So, I noticed that, Ray, actually, and hello, Ray. The issue with those who obviously lost work and all that, it's not because they don't have the savings, it's because the current benefit system or because the salary idea put forward didn't come into effect or companies didn't take them back. There are other factors at play here. It isn't exactly the fault of the government for not acting on one other area. But they should, of course, take responsibility if they want to. It's a bit tricky, I think.
Can we just be absolutely clear, and will the Prime Minister make sure it's legislated that nobody can be evicted during this first 6-month period of this emergency from the private rented sector? I'm going to continue my questions shortly, Mr. Speaker, in the second part of this session. But I just want to ask this question to the Prime Minister. Many British people abroad feel a bit abandoned by their government.
Not surprising. They're stuck in another country with no insurance money and... Oh, thank you very much, Clam Smasher, for the £1.99 donation. Or sticker, I think. Yes, thank you. So yes, people stuck abroad. Very generous, thank you very much. Their savings are going to be dwindling. They probably don't have any support from the embassies. Yeah, they're stuck. How do we get them back? Or repatriate them, or whatever it is? It's not the easiest thing to do. Especially when nearly every flight in the country is grounded. Megan, you should do a cooking show and get a GoPro and put on a head strap and do a cooking. How? No. I would probably burn my tentacles. Actually, I'm a good cook. I just don't want to. I'd be very bored, and I'd probably spend more time petting dogs.
With many fast running out of medicines, with the host countries in lockdown, flights being cancelled, accommodation cancelled, and insurance either about to expire or not covering the much needed costs until they're able to return home. These British citizens have a right to turn to their own government for help.
True. How we help them, though, is a complete mystery at present.
And hour-long delays on phone calls are not acceptable. They feel abandoned. Can the Prime Minister, as the Foreign Secretary was asked to do yesterday, update the House on what his government is doing to bring people home and provide...
Brandon, I would.
...the emergency costs for the medical needs that many British residents abroad actually have at the present time?
Mr. Speaker, he can take it that we are certainly doing everything we can to bring back British nationals, British citizens from abroad. A huge operation is going on now to repatriate them, as he will have heard both from the Health Secretary and indeed the Foreign Secretary, where we are protecting renters in spite of what he says. We are doing everything we can to protect our fantastic NHS. We are putting, as a society now, we are doing and as a country, we are doing a quite extraordinary thing.
We're not doing anything... Oh, no, we're going outside at night at 8 p.m, like yesterday, and clapping. Yes. Before it pops, Heather Hent, enjoy your content. Thankfully, I caught alive to donate. Thank you very much for the $8 donation. That's very generous of you. See?
Which is for the first time in our history. To get through this crisis, we are putting our arms as a country around every single worker, every single employee in this country.
Something I find to be quite unique, because I truthfully didn't believe this could happen. I didn't think Boris would show this much compassion, but he has, and it's actually a very interesting side of the character. I am going to skip ahead because I do want to focus on 2 questions from the paper. No, actually, no, I'm going to skip straight ahead to Corbyn again, because I don't see a point in dawdling here and getting straight to the next set of questions. Oh yeah, squeaky chair. Yes. So,
contact going on.
I'm gonna go here a little bit, mute it and let it play out. Right, this is the second set.
Minister's questions. I'm going to open with Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again, thank you for making the arrangements that you have today so that more colleagues can come into the chamber. It is a little odd, however, that we're having to have a double session of Prime Minister's question time to question the Prime Minister when he himself should have volunteered to come here and make a statement at some length on the subject rather than just doing it through press conferences and television addresses. This House is the place where the government should be held to account.
I agree, but I can also understand why he would use press conferences instead. It just doesn't help the many held belief that perhaps Boris doesn't like being held to account.
Construction sites, Mr. Speaker, are still operating, still working on non-emergency work, despite the new rules. The Chancellor...
I would say that, with these, it's a tricky one because it depends on the progression of the construction site in question. While they are deemed and dubbed non-essential, and I know where you're going with this, Corbyn, I'm not going to obviously go down that path, I'm going to let you have that say. If you're halfway through certain types of builds, you have to get it to a point where it can withstand the weather, or it'll just start to fall apart. Yeah, just thought I'd put that out there. I will say, with what he's about to say, he doesn't go down my line of thinking to focus on something else, which is a damning statement for the supposed salary assistance that some are not getting.
Duchy of Lancaster said yesterday that sites will continue to stay open. We heard this morning on the radio a call from a self-employed construction worker who said that he had contracted coronavirus, he was suffering from it, he knew he had got it, but had no other option but to get on the London Tube and go onto a site to work, obviously putting himself at greater risk.
You should see the London Tube right now. I mean, hardly anyone's using it while it's packed.
And putting all other passengers and all other workers on that site at risk.
I think, I'll be honest, he was condemned the moment he got on the tube.
Why was he doing it? Because his site had not been closed down. He had no other source of income to feed his family. So he's going to work, making all of us more at risk as a result. So can the Prime Minister be...
Well, no, I can't actually... No, hang on, no, there's something I can say. I can understand why he's been put in the position he's in. And as I said earlier, this is a damning statement for the company he works for and not being able to do the subsidy that the government had announced. So he shouldn't have to be there. But I don't know enough about what the building site he's working on to fully be able to say that with absolute certainty. And of course, I can't say, well, if he's doing this kind of building, he should be allowed to work even if he is sick. Walk it off, you'll be fine. No, not saying that at all. Move on.
Be absolutely clear, then give unequivocal guidance now that construction work on non-emergency work should stop now.
Mr. Speaker, everybody should work at home unless they must go to work, and every business that can, unless they have an alternative, they cannot do that work from home.
I'm sure a bricklayer could, do a couple bricks with some cement in his living room. I'm just saying. Yeah, they just deliver them on site and just lay them on top like Tetris.
Businesses continue, the construction company is continuing, then clearly they should do so
agree, Russell.
In accordance with the guidance of Public Health England, and they have a duty of care to their employees. But overwhelmingly what we are saying to the people of this country is that unless you need to leave the house to take exercise, for medical reasons, or to buy essential supplies, you should stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives.
I should say, Boris, by definition here, did not answer the question. I thought I'd put it out there. He really didn't.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Obviously, people should stay at home and protect others.
Which is weird because you're in your 70s. What on earth are you doing in that chamber? I know this is your last one, but aren't you at risk, and by extension then putting everyone else at risk? Really gets the noggin jogging, doesn't it?
But if they have no other source of income, then these very difficult, very personal choices are going to be made, and as a result, we're all put at greater risk as a result of it. The self-employed having to choose whether they go to work or stay at home, or face losing their entire livelihood.
Yeah, that's relatable.
Relying instead on an overstretched welfare system, which could pay as little as £94 per week. One self-employed person said they need to pay for baby food, rent, council tax and insurance for the car they use for work. Faced with the decision to feed your family and pay your bills or stay at home and not get paid. Why is it taking the Prime Minister...
Clam Smasher, former brickie and now IT admin, tried that excuse when hungover once. Boss didn't appreciate it. Yeah. I did a construction and built environment MVQ when I was younger. I did some brickwork. It was good fun. Never once did a hangover work. Yes, relatable.
Minister so long to guarantee income for all self-employed workers. There are millions of them.
5.
Our economy has changed.
Yes, it has. So, I'm going to discuss this afterwards with Trups, because there is an announcement with regards to protecting the self-employed, but I couldn't put it into a video because I couldn't be bothered. And Jimmy Cranky was more interesting. The PM does answer this question, I should say. But yes, he can't announce what the government has planned. We do now know what the government plans. Don't spoil it for everyone in the chat if you do know. We will get to it soon.
Absolutely.
Well, Mr. Speaker...
Although I will say, as great as it is that an idea has been put forward, there's a reason that bar at the bottom of the screen exists. It's going to take a while.
We are making absolutely clear to everybody in this country that they should stay at home and save lives. But when it comes to the self-employed and the particular pressures that he raises, I think I've now said several times already in this chamber in answer to other honourable members that we are shortly bringing forward a package, and I think that he would recognise that the steps that the government has taken to provide support for workers, for employees in this country are quite exceptional and unprecedented, and they were warmly welcomed, I may say, by the trades unions themselves.
I'm going to give you a spoiler. The next question's about the universal credit. Yeah. The word draconian is going to be said unironically.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Speaker, I'm asking questions about the self-employed and those on 0 hours contract and those with no recourse to public funds who have no support. They are in a very difficult situation, and he should understand that there are many of our constituents, for every member of this House, our constituents
Bye, Stuart. Thank you very much for being here. Smash like.
lead a hand-to-mouth existence.
Yeah. That's a tricky one, hand to mouth, isn't it? Especially when you're considered a valued and key and important worker, but none of the businesses you do all the key and important work for are open anymore. Yeah.
A few days' pay
I'm not salty.
lost is catastrophic for them. And time again, government ministers have told us that workers affected by the crisis could get help via universal credit. Last night, there were
It takes 5 weeks, by the way, to sort that out, so yeah, that's a delay.
queues of over 110,000 people.
That's quite a long queue. Yeah, should have seen the one outside my Sainsbury's today. There was at least 12 people there.
Get onto the DWP system in order to register to apply for universal credit. Will the Prime Minister now put extra resources and funding to boost the DWP capacity and relax the often quite draconian requirements on people claiming, so that money gets where it's needed quickly to those people who've got to feed the kids, got to pay the rent, got to survive somehow?
Right, so this is actually a valid question, and blaming China. Sorry, Russell. What was it? Oh, draconian, he said it then. I find it fascinating considering that word has been thrown about ever since the lockdown was proposed. Apparently everything's draconian, though, to be honest. But he has a point. The waiting on this is ridiculous. It needs to be slackened in some manner because there are too many people now needing the system, which is by definition being pushed to a break point. A really difficult one, I might add, because as much as they want this to be as simple as possible, because more people now have to use universal credit, that's going to get really expensive really fast. And I'll talk about the self-employed soon, I promise. Exactly, Clam Smash, that's another issue. Because if you do slacken it, you then set yourself up to repeat labour, where people abused the living feck out of a system by going to every different department they could claim benefits from, claiming tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands, and never having to work, and yet being able to live a lavish life on the taxpayer. At no point in my life have I ever lived a lavish life because of the taxpayer. I would argue I live a comfortable life now, comfortable by standards of my own, like in the sense of I don't struggle anymore as much as I used to. But lavish, I mean, these guys got everything. And they bought, because they were typical poor people with lots of money, they blew it all. And people will do it again. They'll always do it again.
Mr. Speaker, he's perfectly right. And that's why we've increased the funding for universal credit so that it goes up by £1,000 a year. That will benefit 4 million of the most vulnerable households in the country. And overall, we're putting another £7 billion into the welfare system altogether. And as I say, we will be bringing forward a package for the self-employed. But what we are not doing, and this is fully in accordance with the scientific and medical advice, what we are not doing is closing down the whole UK economy. And, you will understand the reasons for that.
Yeah, but I don't think he cares. Also, spoiler, this is where Jeremy does a funny. Brace yourselves. It's that time of year again.
Jeremy Corbyn.
We're not asking for the entire UK economy to be closed down. We obviously want people to be safe, but clearly things have to go on. My question was about the DWP resources, which the Prime Minister didn't answer.
Yep.
Well, it wasn't an answer that was satisfactory to me. One of his colleagues is claiming it was a yes. I'll take that. And so that means more staff now for the DWP, quickly, so we don't have 110,000 people waiting. Yeah, I haven't finished yet.
I'll give him that. That's quite funny.
My question is, Mr. Speaker, while he's about it, and this will give him time to think of the answer, can he... This is not a time for levity. The statutory sick pay level of £94...
I'll give him credit that, even though he just tried to... he shouldn't have said that because the joke was funny on its own. That's actually not bad for him.
25 a week, which the Health Secretary admitted he couldn't live on. And despite promising he would ensure workers get the support they need, we've still not seen action on that. So unless we increase statutory sick pay and give protection and access to benefits for those on 0 hours contracts, then the dangers that we're all aware of people going into work or trying to work when they shouldn't is going to continue. We do need very urgent action on this.
Agreed.
Mr. Speaker, he's absolutely right. This is not a time for levity. It's a time for serious action and a serious response to the crisis. And that's what he's seen from this government. And that's why from day one we insisted that statutory sick pay should be payable from day one. That's why we've advanced universal credit. And just to repeat the answer I gave a moment ago, Mr. Speaker, we've increased universal credit by £1,000 a year. That will benefit 4 million people of the poorest families in the country. And yes, we do want to see... I pay tribute, by the way, amongst the many fantastic workers in this country, not just in the NHS, not just in social care, but of course in the teaching profession, but in the DWP itself. They're doing an incredible job. They're facing...
Oh my God. If Corbyn was trans, he would unironically rename himself Karen. Ah, jeez. Karen Corbyn.
Huge new demands. Yeah. They're doing an outstanding job. And yes, we will support them. And that's why we're putting another £7 billion, as I said just now, Mr. Speaker, into our welfare system.
I don't want to...
I just want to say now, this is Jeremy Corbyn's last question. So everyone, F in the chat, I guess. I think this is a good moment, really,
Be a totally
Final
negative...
time, we have to hear him stood there, never having managed to get to the other side. Thank the Lord.
Mr. Speaker, but it would be better if the whole place had been better staffed in the first place. But I'll take it for what the Prime Minister said, that there's going to be an increase in DWP staff in order that people can access universal credit more quickly. Mr. Speaker, it's quite right that Parliament is virtually closed today, and it's right that the Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers continue to deliver daily public information sessions, and that is absolutely correct. However, I understand it's going to be possibly some time before the House meets again, and there has to be scrutiny.
Oh wait, that's not the last question. Damn it!
Of what governments do. That is what Parliament is for. That is what oppositions exist for. And so I'd be grateful if the Prime Minister could indicate how it is. Please.
All our thinking.
I will skip to his last one. Don't worry, everyone. I've got you.
I will work with you, if I may, Mr. Speaker, about how we can make sure that Parliament is also kept informed throughout the recess.
Jeremy Corbyn.
By the way, that recess, yeah. That's going to make things tricky on this channel when it comes to political content, but won't have to worry about PMQ streams at least. I just have to be more prepared for recaps and for daily videos. If I'm able to, if not, then there won't be one. But I like to be active, so I will try and find some.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All I could say to the Prime Minister on this is, please make sure you make yourself available for scrutiny by this House and by...
Going to be a bit tricky now, isn't it?
...everybody else, because we represent people who are desperately worried about their health, about their economic well-being, and if you're living in a small flat and you're told to isolate and you have a large family and a large number of children, the levels of stress are going to be huge. The levels of stress throughout our society are huge. It's up to all of us to do what we can to reduce those levels of stress and obviously bring this whole situation to a conclusion as quickly as we can. So we need clarity, not confusion. We need delivery, not dither. This crisis shows us...
Did he just say dither? He stole Boris's word. That's plagiarism.
Mr. Speaker, how deeply we depend on each other. We'll only come through this as a society through a huge collective effort. At a time of crisis, no one is an island. No one is self-made. The well-being of the wealthiest corporate chief executive officer depends on the outsourced worker cleaning their office. At times like this, Mr. Speaker, we have to recognise the value of each other and the strength of a society that cares for each other and cares for all.
So I wanted to let him have that because this is the last time he's going to be doing questions like this. As far as I'm concerned, he deserves the right to be able to say that. And to be honest, that's not the stupidest thing that's come out of his mouth. I'm going to let Boris quickly answer it, and we're going to do Ian Blackford's questions, because we didn't do the first two because they were just restatements of Corbyn's questions. But the next two, sure. I want to cover them because they're self-employed related, and they lead handily on to, well, the main bulk of this. Well, I say this has been the main bulk, hasn't it? I've gone for 45 minutes, haven't I? No, 50. It's fine. I've got more. It's all good. This will be a long one.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I really want to do nothing else except to associate myself fully with the closing words of the Leader of the Opposition. And I think that what this country is doing now is utterly extraordinary. We are coming together as a nation in a way that I've not seen in my lifetime to help to defeat a disease and to help save the lives of many, many thousands of our fellow citizens. And we all understand that that will involve a sacrifice. But we're gladly making that sacrifice. And the most important point I can perhaps make to the House today is that that sacrifice is inevitable and it is necessary. But the more we follow the advice of the government, the more strictly we obey the measures that we have put in place, then the swifter and more surely this country will come back from the current crisis, the better we will recover. And so I just repeat my message in case the right honourable gentleman would like to hear it one more time. The best thing we can do is stay at home, protect our NHS and save many, many thousands of lives.
I like that. Well, obviously it's a serious situation. The solution to stay at home appeals to so many people. I'm not one of them, but I do get how serious this is. I just wanted to make light of it, and I love the optimism still, even in this situation. We will now go to Blackford for the 2 questions. I'm not going to put the paper pervert image up on the screen. There's no point. I'm not doing that. We ain't doing them tings.
Speaker,
The Mayor, every
100 inquiries have been made in Scotland about NHS staff seeking to return to work in order to help us defeat the coronavirus.
Samuel Adams virus.
These people, and all those already working tirelessly within our NHS...
Oh, I forgot something. Before he continues, there was a hashtag trending, and I remembered it because I've got it written in my notes in front of me. Russell. That was weird. The hashtag was Jeremy Corbyn. OH, then Jeremy Corbyn. It was quite annoying. A lot of it was just people saying, but his humanity, he was the best Prime Minister we ever had. The Prime Minister we deserved. No one was worthy of Jeremy Corbyn, really. He could have ushered in a new age of blah, 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 blah. Carrying on.
are our heroes. Every last one of them, from consultants to cleaners, from carers to nurses, from drivers to maintenance workers, from GPs to paramedics, they are performing vital work to save the lives of others. When this crisis is over, we in this House will need to find some way to honour those amazing heroes. But there is one way that the...
If one of you dickheads gives me a urinal cake, I'm going to smack you in the tits. I'll start with you, Shorty.
public can honour and support our NHS staff now, and that is by staying at home. Staying at home and adhering to social distancing will save lives, protect our health and social care services, and begin to flatten the curve.
It's so weird. I would say, by the way, that's been debunked today by the spike in deaths, but yeah, sure. What was I going to say? I had something then. Adhering to social distancing is a very odd thing to hear this guy say when he's been so into the whole, genetic fabric culture, integration. Yeah. But I'm just making a light comment. It's not me being too critical.
We can avoid unnecessary deaths, but only if we all act together. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that we owe it to everyone in our NHS and to those willing to return for non-essential workers to stay at home?
Can I congratulate the right honourable gentleman for the splendid way in which he expressed himself just now, and I think that message deserves to be heard loud and clear across the whole UK.
Ian Blackford.
I just want to say before he asks his final question, I love in my notes here I wrote, spend 5 minutes, possibly 10, working your way through PMQs. I then started watching PMQs and realised I need to put a 0 on that.
Well, can I thank the Prime Minister for what he has just said? Many members in this House will have had constituents contacting in recent days around evictions. Will the Prime Minister...
P.O. Box when, Squiddy? I want to send you a urinal cake. Clam Smasher, you'd better get your tits out then, because I'm going to smack them. Thank you for the £2 donations. Very generous of you.
join me in praising Scotland's Community Secretary, Aileen Campbell, who has announced the Scottish Government's intention to use the emergency powers granted by the coronavirus bill to protect people from losing their homes. The Scottish Government's plan to impose a 6-month ban on evictions from private and social rented accommodation are as welcome as they are necessary. And will the Prime Minister also join me in sending a message out from this House that in times like this, we need a truly loving and compassionate society? No one No one
You really don't want to check Twitter then, do you? There ain't no love on that. If you saw the Pray for Boris hashtag that was about, I think, today. Yeah. There ain't no love.
Mr. Speaker, should be facing the threat of evictions at a time of national emergency. Will the Prime Minister send out that message today?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. I want to repeat what we're doing and the sense and the thrust of it. It's not just supporting LHA, putting £1 billion more back into supporting the rented sector through local housing allowance, but also stopping no-fault evictions. Now, the difference is between 3 months and 6 months. What I can tell the Right Honourable Gentleman is we will certainly keep that protection under review.
Right. This is actually... I think those questions are quite important when it comes to social housing, private renting, although I would say, again, he essentially just went down and covered things that Jeremy Corbyn had already asked. However, both of his questions were still reasonable. I know some people were commenting on this when PMQs was live, that when he spoke, it was the voice of a really irritating socialist just saying that everything needs to be provided for by the state. I don't think that's the case. I think he's just trying to do, again, what he's always done, and that is put the needs of his people above anything else. But being very warm and receptive and engaging to the collective national interest, which I think is really important, and I'm going to make another squeaky sound. There we go. So, where is it? Here we are. I guess we should continue with this as both of us. Yes. I know you're there, Trups. I can see you. You probably...
Hi, how you doing?
I'm alright. I've had a bit of fun with PMQs.
I've been listening to your interesting coverage of your socialist or former socialist.
He's
Don't get me wrong though. America's not going too much better.
Oh, I saw the numbers today. Your country and ours both spiked quite nastily. Although yours was a significant improvement. I guess before we get into that, I will cover the one topic that's not... It is corona-related, but not related to death toll or Boris. This comes... Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm not coughing, I promise. I'm just going to pull my emails up because... It might be. It may well be. No. So during the PMQs, there was mention of self-employment and a support scheme in place. So, earlier today, I received an email from HM Revenue and Customs, HMRC. And Karma says hello in the chat. The email is a reference to the speech given by Rishi Sunak with regards to what will be done to help us without making us go on benefits. And there is one in place. It's called a Self-Employment Income Support Scheme, which would support self-employed people who have been adversely affected by COVID. Samuel Adams, yes. Now, there is an eligibility issue, but that's fine. I think it's if you earn up to 50,000, you're fine. Now, self-employed people do not need to get in touch with HMRC as the scheme isn't yet open for applications. So when does this start? When does this save the self-employed people who have lost their work? In June. Right. That's a while away. Unfortunately, they can't do anything to change that. Now, the following also help to assist. One is a deferral of self-assessment income tax payments. That means nothing to me because I don't pay my tax until January next year. Grants for businesses that pay little or no business rates. Again, not me. Increased amounts of universal credit. That's a benefit. Not touching that. And business interruption loan scheme. I don't think I want a loan either. So yeah, there is an option on the table. I will quickly pull up the eligibility so I can reference this. You are being directed. Cool. Now give me I want the criteria website. So, who can apply? Anyone who submitted an income self-assessment tax return for the year 2018 to 19. I have traded in 2019 to 2020. I don't think traded, but I was business at least active. are trading when you apply, or would be except for Samuel Adams. Intend to continue trading, so yes. Have lost trading partnership trading profits due to Samuel Adams. Your self-assessment trading profits must also be less than 50 grand and more than half your income from self-employment. Since all of mine comes from self-employment, I qualify. This is determined by at least one of the following conditions. Having trading profits in 2018-19 of less than 50 grand, and these profits constitute more than half your total taxable income, and having trading profits in 2016 to 17, 17 to 18, 18, 19 of less than 50 grand, and these profits constitute more than half your average taxable income in the same period. I qualify in June, which is why the budget deficit now exists. Because until June I can't really do much else. Yay. I'm so happy. Okay, I wrote down here I was going to give myself 10 minutes to moan about it, but I don't want to anymore. Okay. So how's things in America, Trups? Go on, regale us with tales of success and life.
So America is pretty fucked.
You did pass.
We're preparing for the end, kind of like how you guys were for Brexit. Your whole world is gonna end in explosions, and there's gonna be death in the street. Hold on, yeah. A lot of people are unironically preparing for that.
But you did at least pass that financial bailout bill thing.
Oh, did they? Fuck, I didn't even know. They finally passed that today?
Yeah, but one Republican did a little grandstanding because he wanted more full votes or something.
Oh, well, I'm just happy it took them.
But yeah, I saw the news. I saw the news in passing though.
Oh, that's good. That's fantastic. It's a very strange thing because I am not in a overly affected area. I'm in the South. I'm not in New York, New Jersey. I'm not in California. So some of the shit that they've been saying about how the death toll is crazy and people have been just so overwhelmed and shit. I'm just like, hey, what if you could send them to a different state? Unfortunately, it would be the same as if I said, hey, England, you're suffering with the amount of people in your hospital beds. Mm-hmm. What if you just sent them to France?
I'd be down for that. We got a little gap.
I mean,
we can do it. Squeak.
Right, but I mean, that's kind of what it actually means when I say just send them to a different state. So obviously, not really likely, not conducive to an actual environment where somebody needs to be on a ventilator.
So when I was looking at...
However...
Oh, go on, please.
However, panic is cross-country.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Go on.
I was going to reference the death tolls. I know that in the UK, the death toll jumped by a third from 578 to 759 in the last 24 hours. And I was going to pull up the US one, but it just vanished off my screen. I know Italy spiked by nearly 1,000, taking its tally to nearly just over 9,000. Death rates, right. So, for example, there are figures that reveal it's 0.6% death rate in Germany, but the death rate is 10% in Italy because of the different testing regimes, which is really interesting. But the US, where was it? It was a ridiculous spike today. Where is it? I've got US. So the US death rate is currently 1.5%. 7th.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, we're 5th. Get good scrub, I guess. Actually, no, stay where you are, you're safer.
We're number one. Number one.
Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands are at the top. Actually, it's all European for the first 6. Yeah, it's mostly that. It's astonishing. Yeah. The top, out of the top 11...
It's probably even...
Go on.
I was going to say, it's probably even worse if you look at, per capita.
True. Of the 11 in this little tally here, 8 of them are European countries. That is not good. South Korea and Australia being the other two non-European nations involved in this. Oops. Okay, so what's going to happen in the US at the moment? What is the response to all of this?
So you unfortunately right now you have a whole bunch of political grandstanding, which is really the last thing I wanted to have to say.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how aware you are of why we had the issue with the blocking of the bill, but it basically started off as a bipartisan bill, and I was really pumped for it. I'm like, I'm glad you guys putting aside your differences. We're gonna work this shit out. We're gonna pump this out. We're gonna fix this problem. It's gonna be
know where
great.
this is going.
I was so happy, and you know what? And they had to ruin it. They had to bring me back down.
I guess?
They
Can I
had
guess? Can I guess what happened next? 'Cause
Yes,
I don't
please.
actually know. Did someone then decide they wanted to slap more things onto it?
Yes, of course.
Oh, that was such a lucky guess.
You know who it was?
Oh, go on.
Oh, Pelosi.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I now understand why I saw a load of Twitter videos,
Pelosi.
right? I saw a load of videos, memes of Thanos with Trump's head at the end of Endgame, about to do the snap, but doesn't obviously turn to the bit with him no gems on the back of the glove. He does the snap, and Pelosi's giving a speech, but I didn't hear what she said, and she and the team get erased. I get why
Probably
that was.
her basically saying.
Go on.
Basically saying that, okay, we're not going to do this. The Republicans are trying to push this bill, and it's going to sacrifice people for the good of the market, and this will end up padding the pockets of the rich executives of these businesses that Trump wants to bail out.
Oh, for God's sake.
No, you fucking idiot.
Now I understand why in the chat somebody at the moment.
Brandon, I wanted to hope, man.
This is why when you joined, when I first said hello to you, someone wrote in the chat, "Fuck the Democrats." I now understand why you said that. Because I had no context, so I didn't reply to it earlier. That's amazing.
No,
I'm genuinely amazed.
It has been It's very strange because you remember how I was telling you about some of those groups that I was a part of on Facebook?
Yes, you did,
the ones that are so anti-Trump that I think that they're like dangerous.
Yes, we did discuss this.
Well, those groups are totally behind Pelosi.
Oh, really?
They honestly believe that Trump and the GOP tried to push a bill that would only pad the pockets of rich executives.
Oh, really?
And they honest to God believe it, and you can see it on Twitter. At least for the United States trending, which is the one I get, obviously. There was something like not one life for the Dow or something like that trending.
Okay.
And it was basically saying that I would not sacrifice anybody just to bring up the stock market. And I'm like, we're not. It's not a 1-to-1 comparison. We're not like, all right, this one goes in the tribute. Oh, stock goes up 1 point. All right, we need 20,000 more. It doesn't work that way. And no one was proposing that it did. You guys just came up with this shit.
Yeah, that's bad. Oh, they ruined it.
Corona.
What? Yeah. Why would they F in the chat for Traps? Why would they do something so utterly stupid? Like, this actually was something that had promise.
Because Jim Clyburn, a representative from South Carolina, told Pelosi that this is the best opportunity to reshape things in our vision.
This is so stupid. Now I understand why I saw more people saying, this is all Trump's fault. I now understand that. I saw it everywhere, and it was doing my head in, people talking about how Trump was the one causing all these issues. Or how he's only keeping things going because of big business. He only cares about business. I'm like, no. This bill's supposed to help.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He's trying to fucking bring business back.
Hmm.
But that's because business is the lifeblood of the things that, I don't know, pay doctors and shit.
Yeah, a similar thing here. It's like when Boris didn't want to enforce the lockdown. He genuinely didn't. You saw the look on his face. He didn't want to do it because he knew how important it was to keep businesses running. But he had no choice because the British ignored him, and they continue to ignore him.
Oh, the U.S. is ignoring people too. There was this whole.
I saw New York.
There was this whole thing in Florida where University of Tampa people were doing a spring break, and then like 5 of those people got fucking corona, and I was like, "Oh, you idiots!"
Yeah, I heard a lot of that actually from somebody, my avatar artist, who's actually a Floridian. She mentioned a lot of the stupid Florida stuff, and I'm like, well, that sounds like Florida to me. So the bill's gotten through at least. How long will this money last, do you reckon?
Well, that's a good question because it really depends on where you live. So if you are a person living in Idaho on a farm, $1,200 may get you pretty far in terms of like payments to a bank.
Mm-hmm.
But if you live in LA, $1,200 won't cover 1 month.
Yeah, cost of living is a real issue with a lot of people. I get that. I know that a lot of people are ignoring this, and it's something we know about in the UK, because we hear about it enough about people ignoring people's ruling here. We hear about it in New York. It's this arrogance, because London is where the problem is here. New York for you. Those cities that think they're their own entity or country. It's arrogance, and it's really irritating.
For all intents and purposes, New York kind of feels like its own place sometimes.
So I've been told.
This is coming from somebody who used to live in Upper Jersey, who could frequently go into New York. It's an entirely different place, with entirely different rules. And the funny thing that happened with New York, though, is that Mayor Bill de Blasio, he wanted to fix things. He was considering putting a stay-at-home order. Cuomo said, "What are you, crazy? Would never do that." 2 days later, Cuomo's like, "We're putting a shutdown in New York."
You don't get a bloody choice in the matter. National safety and everything.
What happened?
I was saying that it's in the interest of the nation that you shut the thing down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pool of Zenda says it right. It's sheer fucking hubris.
Yes, it is.
It's the audacity that they think they're better than this thing.
I agree. That's that arrogance again, and it really annoys. It's the I'm indestructible, or no, it wouldn't get me. Okay, doubt.
Brain dead. Legally, companies are considered people, and therefore their bailout should be restricted to $1,200. There is precedent to say that.
There was the
that's an interesting quote.
Very true. There are some very amusing memes that, and I get the bigger picture with these memes. I do. The one that a family struggling to get by will scrape by and manage to exist, but a multinational corporation is done for a day and it needs a bailout. And I get the bigger picture remark, but I like the joke of it just on its own because it seems oddly accurate.
Well, one of the craziest things is that all these, self-proclaimed communists, anarcho-communists, socialists on Twitter, they love to say, "Oh well, we can't let the airlines get this bailout money." Why? What have the airlines ever done to you?
Kind of neat.
What have airlines ever actually done to anybody besides like United being a general cockhead?
Right.
But like, what has JetBlue done against the common man, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or you're not talking about airlines, and you're talking about air manufacturers like Boeing, Lockheed, etc.
There's
a difference.
There is.
And if you want to say, "Oh, fuck Lockheed," well, you really should consider the other people who are Lockheed's, clients.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. military, the National Guard, some police.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who are going to come to your house to pick you up, yeah, some of those radios, not all of them are made, just by, average Jim's electronics down the street.
Agreed.
So I mean, you really can't start squandering these things, and start picking and choosing. Oh well, these airline companies, you can't do that. That's they don't deserve it. Oh really? Because like they don't have bills to pay at home either. They aren't fathers, mothers, kids, whatever. No, all right, whatever.
No.
No,
Airlines.
don't ever ask about the humanity behind things.
No, don't do that. That's just
that
selfish.
would just make you a dick.
Exactly, and we don't want to break Rule 0 on this channel. Don't be a dick.
On this channel, the rule is don't be a dick.
Yeah, Rule 0, just
I've
don't be a dick.
that since I came on here. Fuck.
Yeah. It's the only thing I like that Will Wheaton never came up with. Or claimed to come up with. Anyway.
But, I mean, if the issue is you need to be able to continue to produce things so that the economy can continue, by all means, bail out the company. I'm all for not giving executives an extra pad in their paycheck. I'm cool with that. That makes sense. I'm cool with that. That is what that should happen, because that money is allocated not for your paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of gets muddied over when you only have 280 characters to write a tweet.
I used to love it when people complained about only having 150, and now I wish they only had 150 because I could see people getting even more angry. Bring back retro Twitter.
No, because then it would just be, instead of a 6-long Twitter thread by the same person, it would be a 12-long Twitter thread, or a 24, all that shit.
I'm okay with that because it's very funny to watch someone spurg for that long.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we move on?
Sure.
Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, no level of irony with this one, have both been diagnosed with the Samuel Adams virus. Both have mild symptoms, like the Prince of Wales, which does raise a number of worries and concerns with that of the Queen, but she has been tested, I believe.
I heard about Prince Charles. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I was a bit concerned for him, because actually he's likeable now. Only took him 71 years. But yes, Boris Johnson put out a 2-minute video. He did try. Boris put out a 2-minute video on Twitter at his residence at number 10. Although, if memory serves, Prime Ministers don't actually live in the apartment above number 10. They live in the one above 11 instead. Oh, no, that was during Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, because Tony needed more space for his kids. So actually, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, Gordon Brown lived at number 10. Which was quite funny, I guess. But yes, Boris is self-isolated. His partner, his pregnant partner, is not with him, for obvious reasons. And, this is interesting, because now we're in a very difficult position. Many have jumped on this. There was a hashtag, Pray for Boris. I would highly recommend people don't go look it up. In fact, that was when I realised
it's really sad.
It's when you then see the humanity of Britain is just still basically like your non-bipartisan politics. It was utter tripe and abuse, which was hilarious, but honestly, no. Don't do that to yourself. I personally...
I like dark humour.
I do too,
I like
but this
dark
wasn't
humor as much as the next guy.
None of it, not much of it was
wrong.
Yeah, not much of that was dark, to be fair. There was some dark jokes, yes, but most of it was just "fuck you, Boris," and then insert anything related to just die already there. There's not been much said on Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, but a number of things have been raised since then. First of all, Jeremy had then done his interview saying that this Samuel Adams virus had proved that his policy's hard left manifesto was the right one, and if he had won, then this would have saved the day. I think he's confused the definition for word saved with bankrupted, but sure. We also have had a number of people saying that This is a damning statement for the government's behaviour and actions, because they have believed and started to posit the idea that because the government was still meeting, even though they were meeting mostly by video conference, there were still some that met up for meetings, and there are photos of them meeting and being quite close to each other, that they didn't help themselves, which I agree, they didn't help themselves. Some saying that this is them not living by their own words. Therefore, they deserved it, which I don't agree with either. The other counter is that people are now wondering who's going to lead the country if Boris then becomes unable. At present, Boris is still able to do everything he is able to do as Prime Minister via video conferences, and still be able to deliver on whatever it is that we need to do to help the country. So he's still able to do his job. If he's unable to do his job because he only has mild symptoms, if he is unable to do his job, it is believed either the Sneck, who is currently the Chancellor and Duchy of Lancaster, Michael Gove. It's unlikely in favour. Yeah, it was. Although the claim is at the moment it will be the Foreign Secretary, who is Dominic Raab, a very interesting person.
Yeah,
by that I mean,
about that.
He's not the worst person to lead at the moment. I know why Boris would, and he is. You can't have.
I believe Sargon's words were "mad lad."
Sure. I actually, in retrospect, he is the correct person, because you can't have the Chancellor do it, because the Chancellor would then hold powers to 2 offices, and that can't be done. A reshuffle would have to take place, and that couldn't work. It can't be the Home Secretary, because again, too close. The Foreign Secretary is like the most powerful, distant person. So that works, actually. So I think this will be very interesting. The coming week will be very interesting. I have linked down below the Boris Johnson video on his tweet. It's interesting. He's just very positive. Like Prince Charles, mild symptoms. That's not something to be worried about yet. And nor should anyone be worried about that. If you are at all one of those that put a positive comment under the hashtag pray for Boris. I like in my notes here I just wrote... what does that say? Oh, it says it's hard to believe that at a time like this, humanity is more interested in shitting on somebody who is trying to hold the country up. Typical British behaviour.
Typical American behavior too. Actually, that's all you hear against Trump too. You know, there was an instance. Chloroquine and there was another drug combined that are malaria medication. Trump had talked about it because there was a French study with a very small sample size that showed that it may be able to repel coronavirus symptoms as a method of therapy. Well, some dumb shit. Well, actually, before I go into that, he basically said it because there was an article about it, and he was like, "Yeah, look at that. There's a thing. That's kind of cool." And people were like, "Trump is trying to push unsubstantiated medical claims." Meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, is like, "Did you hear about this chloroquine thing?" And the news was like, "Andrew Cuomo, the savior of us all," and it was so fucking blatant. It was so blatant that everyone was like, "I'm sorry, what the fuck?"
Oh, I like that.
And then some dumb shit decided that they'd go chloroquine. Chlorine?
Oh, jeez.
Chloroquine phosphate. That's okay. So I know chlorine's bad. Chloroquine, this is chloroquine phosphate. It can't be that much different. Let's chug fishbowl cleaner.
Oh no! It's gonna be a new Instagram. It's gonna be a new challenge on Twitter, isn't it?
They died. Well, one did. One died. The husband died. The wife is alive.
Get good.
But apparently, that's not the only stupidity that's been going on.
Oh, you mean like
my fiance has also been keeping up with.
As a rumor of a cure that involves powdered bear bile. And I saw it on Twitter.
I have not heard I've not heard that one. No,
that was Sugar Tits on Twitter. She mentioned "Leave the bears alone," and I'm actually intrigued because I forgot to look this up. I wrote it down to look at I wanted to see what the medicinal benefits of powdered bear bile was, because I personally, I hear bile, I know exactly. For the most part, it seems to be universal in most bodies in how it acts as a catalyst. It's very useful with enzymes in it. Okay, great to know. So, what's so special about bear bile? And are you just fobbing off more of this bullshit in China? Maybe you should get a proper education system.
Or don't trust China in general.
Oh, I saw it and I laughed.
I feel so bad for the Chinese people.
Don't. I got sent loads of videos.
I feel so bad for the people of China.
I did until I saw a video of a woman in a garden rustling through a hedge to see a little infant, chick in a nest.
A child? Oh.
And she took it out of the nest, held this newborn in her hand, and then ate it. And I sat there and was like, you may think that's natural selection, but what's about to happen to you is called karma.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. But then again, we have Florida.
Oh, don't. Oh, your Florida's amazing.
I'm just saying, we have weird shit too.
It's not a pissing contest.
Like, that's a thing that you've seen. No, it's not. It's not like indicator of the grand population.
Can you imagine Trump trying to sort of argue this point? That people saying, "Oh, China is stupid." And he's like, "No, we got Florida, mate. We got this." Let me just reel off a list of Florida, man. We got this, fam.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's a pissing contest, but just remember that we have stupid people too.
Oh, you're not forgotten or ignored.
You guys have stupid people too.
Oh yeah. No one's denying it. It's just there.
But I meant for the sane people of China who are just trying to like make it through with their families.
Yeah.
I feel bad that they're suffering under an oppressive government that is now actually being sued by class action lawsuit from Nevada.
Yeah.
Basically, a bunch of people got together and said the People's Republic of China is directly responsible for the imprisonment or otherwise censor of people who would have ordinarily alerted the public to this situation. And because of that action, they are directly responsible for all of the lost financial stuff for small business owners in the state of Nevada and across the United States.
Lol. What I really...
the problem is, can you really enforce that?
You might be able to under international law. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
Is this a Nuremberg trial part 2?
It might be, I'll be honest. Let's go to The Hague. Let's do this.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Let's just take this... Let's escalate this. Where's Karen? I've got something I need you to ask the manager. I'd like to...
yes.
I think it's...
Well, it would be very crazy if just collectively, right?
Yeah.
Most people say that, basically how Brandon is saying that no one will ever do anything against China because China is everything. But what if you just said, hey, China, you're under house arrest. You're not allowed to operate individually anymore.
I'll be honest.
Don't get me wrong. The British have done it before.
The idea of that would be what we would call, I guess we might call sanctions. Not allowed to trade with any of these countries anymore. You're sat in limbo, and we just trade with each other, and you're stuck there with yourself. Since you're reliant on other nations now for rice. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
Well, that's basically where I'm getting at. The whole world pissed off at China for this. Said, you know what? No one's doing business with you anymore.
I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, though. I really wouldn't be.
What's China going to do? China's not going to have a leg to stand on, nor the leverage against the international community.
No, if anyone starts pulling out of trade deals, I think the EU might actually. To be honest, they're the kind that would rather preserve the integrity of their entity first. A trade deal with China would be in
Yeah, that reminds me.
Go on.
How's Merkel doing?
I don't know. Has she got corona? Let's find out.
Yeah.
Has she? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
To be fair, she's not really a powerful leader in Germany anymore. She's more like she's just there. Not Prime Minister, Chancellor. She's just like there. She's not really. Yeah. She doesn't have much power anymore because the number of what are they called? Coalitions to make up her government. But I hope under the circumstances, I hope
made out of China sometimes.
True. I do hope. I wouldn't wish anything ill on anyone really, for the most part. Even with her, I'd rather she got through this and she leads the country to that, because I don't think it right to.
Oh no, I want people who are dealing with Corona, even if I don't like them, I want them to get better, because there is a valid reasoning behind the idea that people who have faced near death or basically had to face their own mortality, they end up being kinder people. Their priorities get shifted around. Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, let's say a greedy person has a brush with death.
Yes.
And they suddenly realize that all their money can't save them.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly, they're not so greedy anymore. Now they have different priorities.
Yeah.
So, I want everybody who is suffering from this to get better, because that means that all those people, if they were bad people, may have a different outlook on life.
Mm-hmm. Well, one can certainly hope. I personally, I know that Merkel does have a track record for compassion. I know this. I've heard about it many times in the past. So chances are this actually will do her good anyway, her reputation especially. While many would want the EU to burn, I, in this instance, do not want it to burn, because if it burns, too many countries will go with it. It now has to stand so that countries can rebuild and leave on their own terms. Genuinely, too many countries are reliant on money from the EU. And it's a huge deal. And with China, I do believe this constitutes a threat to the integrity of the EU single market. Therefore, the EU will revoke any trade deal it has with China. And I think they will. Especially with what's happened in Italy, the damage done there, and Spain. Actually, the majority of them are EU nations in the top 10. It's ridiculous. But hopefully this all gets resolved, because I can't be arsed with this. I can be, but I can't be.
As a kind of a last note.
Go on.
Well, as a kind of a last question before we sign off.
Yeah.
Do you think that China's numbers are accurate?
No, because they've not been reporting any for the last few days, have they? They've outright said, no new cases, nothing new, it's all levelling out. Bollocks. What do you think this was? Just the flu that just sort of decided to evaporate in your atmosphere? I mean, I know you've got a bit of a history with pollution, but seriously. I quite like, by the way, a meme that Laura put on my server. It's just a very British thing, where the English are feeling the pinch in relation to recent virus threats and have therefore raised their threat level from miffed to peeved. Soon, though, the level may be raised again to irritated or even a bit cross. The English have not been a bit cross since the Blitz in 1940, when tea supplies nearly ran out. Blame China. The virus has been recategorised from tiresome to a bloody nuisance. The last time the British issued a bloody nuisance warning level was in 1588, when threatened by the Spanish Armada. The Scots have raised their level from pissed off to let's get the bastard. They don't have any other levels. This is the reason they've been used on the front line of the British Army for the last 300 years. Can confirm. When we use the Scots on the front line, we just call it Operation Upskirt, and we just have them waggle their cocks in front of people.
You know, I've seen Braveheart, and that in that first fight with the Irish, with them alongside them, one guy, they're all mooning the English.
Yeah.
And he suddenly realizes why it's not a good idea to not protect your ass.
Butt talks, indeed.
Yeah.
Before we finish,
not a good. Yeah, arrow to the ass is not the best.
No. barbed one especially. Before we finish, is there anything you would like to shill?
Not really. I had done a video earlier on in the week, but it was non-news related, more of actually a response video to a fellow that I actually watch on a pretty regular basis. I just disagreed with his opinions on something. So that was the only video I had put out this week, but I'll be putting out stuff later.
Did you enjoy making that video at least?
Oh, also, Tempted. I did. I had to think a little bit.
Okay.
I was a little worried about it because, God forbid, I piss off the people, and then it's just like, guys, you're not even listening to what I'm saying.
Oh,
Why do you even bother?
For those that are interested, the video is in the chat. By all means, go check it out. It is a good video. It's very respectful. I have nothing to shill. I'm going to be working on Content Constable all weekend and seeing if I can walk further because I'm getting really bored. I think we're done here, though.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll see you all next week. Say goodnight, Trops.
Good night, Trops.
Good night, Trops.